I believe in a very strong work ethic. That's always been part of my blood. I think I got that from my dad.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you put the time in, the effort, that you can make anything possible. And actually, my first year, I was Rookie of the Year at age 51. I strongly believe that if you stay in contact with your clients and you treat them right from the get-go, your business will grow. And that has been the core of our business. We keep track of all our sales, and 97% of our business today is from referrals.
So here we are, Rate of Success podcast. I am very excited to speak with the one and only Slav. Now, you got to help me out with the last name because what's the correct way to pronounce the last name?
Polinski.
Polinski, okay. Yeah. So Slav Polinski. So a little bit of background. So Slav and I have never officially done business. So this is going to be, I just admired Slav from afar. We've known each other. I've helped buyers purchase your listings. His office is below, but he runs a great business in town, so I'm extremely fortunate that he agreed to come in and talk today. So first and foremost, Slav, just tell me a little bit about where you're at now, how long you've been in the business.
Well, currently with App Properties, I started out with Coldwell Banker 13 years ago.
13 years, yeah. So that would have been, right kind of after kind of the housing market. So what was that like getting into the business during that time? Because that was a really unique time in the industry.
It was. And I had friends asking me, you're going into real estate now? And I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
It was interesting. I was lucky to hook up with a mentor.
Yeah.
Just because my connections with my wife, who was a VA for her, and that helped a lot. And at that time, I took on every single rental an agent didn't want to take, and that helped build my business.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you get into business, as we always say, and we joked a little bit about before we started, nobody plans to get into the mortgage business. Correct. We all end up here by accident. So what did the path, because I always feel like, your background of what you did before you get to real estate really kind of shape who you are as a realtor. So what did that look like before getting into real estate?
Well, I was an employee for UPS for 33 years.
Okay.
And between 2008 and 2012, I had 3 spinal surgeries, probably 15 epidural injections. And I already kind of knew that my time at UPS was coming to an end.
Yeah.
I'm a person that does not like to sit still. So I started thinking about what else can I do?
Yeah.
And at that point, through my wife's suggestion, I went to one boot camp on the weekend.
Yeah.
And that got me hooked, and I started going to more on public speaking, internet marketing, entrepreneurship. Then I started hiring coaches. And during that time, my wife was a VA, one of the first VAs around. Back then, you had to have a certification. And she was a VA for one of the top producing agents in Downers Grove and Coldwell Banker. And so I started suggesting that I help her free of charge, just to help her with her marketing. And when I realized that UPS did not want me back for obvious reasons, she said, I think you'd make a good real estate agent, which I never thought of before. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try.
Yeah. So what has that journey been like? Obviously, coming in when you did, it was, and maybe in a lot of ways a blessing, because you're learning the business the right way versus coming in like many did during 2020 and, where the phone's just ringing and we all think we're amazing. Like you really had to work hard during that time. So was that something that you lean on even today, that time period?
I do. I believe in a very strong work ethic. That's always been part of my blood. I think I got that from my dad.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you put the time in, the effort, that you can make anything possible.
Yeah.
And actually, my first year, I was Rookie of the Year at age 51.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. So you get in, Coldwell Banker, you're doing a lot of rentals. Obviously, you realize probably very quickly, rentals were not going to be the place you were going to continue to grow your business in. So you start getting into, what was that transition and kind of how you found kind of where you are today?
Sure, great question. First thing about rentals, coming from a person that had no sales experience, it gave me great experience of working with clients.
Yeah.
And I think that was very valuable in my business. And I started doing internet leads. everything I could do to have any kind of business coming my way. And eventually that built, and I strongly believe that if you stay in contact with your clients and you treat them right from the get-go, your business will grow. And that has been the core of our business. We keep track of all our sales, and 97% of our business today is from referrals.
That's amazing. Now, you say that, and you're very modest about it, but yet it works. I know it works because I believe really a lot of the same things that you just said. But why do you think so many people in our industry do not do that? Because we've had this industry over the last several years where everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel,
right,
and try to do it all these other ways, when really there's this tried and proven method that you obviously learned very early on. Why do you think so many people shy away from that in this industry?
I would say the number one reason is the fear of what somebody else on the other end is thinking, that they're being bothered.
Yeah.
I always look at it this way. When I get a call from somebody I know with past sales or even like a car dealer, it doesn't bother me one bit.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fear in that. Rejection has a big thing to do with it.
Yeah. And so you've built your business that way. That's why you've had this name, and I see you a lot at local events in Downers Grove. I mean, you're a staple in the community. So I'm assuming you've lived in Downers Grove, for quite some time?
Sure, since 95.
95, okay. So growing up in the community, obviously now being a realtor in the community, that's a big part of who, what your business has become.
Of course.
Okay? What have you learned along that way, obviously being in the community? Because it can be great. A lot of people, it helps you. But it can also be difficult at times, because you're also on call all the time. People depend on you. Do you ever look at it that way, or is it ever something that, makes you think about it a little bit?
I think that if you showed people in the community that you care about the community or the organizations you belong to, like I've been a member of the Rotary Club of Downers Grove for, I think, 13 years.
Yeah.
That's not a leads group per se, but if you jump in and you do the work to support the group, I've received quite a few, leads through them, and
I just feel like I see you in a lot of things. And that's a big commitment for you. And sometimes, and being a business owner and you have clients that are calling you have these other commitments. There's a lot of people that have a trouble managing their own business, let alone all the help that you do. I see you volunteering at the festival all the time every year.
Yeah,
like you're out there doing that. It's a big commitment.
I do things that I enjoy. I enjoy the real estate business. I enjoy giving back to the community, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
The one side note, I did have a car magnet on my car for quite a few years, and you really have to watch your P's and Q's when you have a car magnet because your phone number's right on there.
Exactly. Yeah, because people will like prank you while you're driving or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You think back to a kid, that would have been a prime thing to be able to.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, so you probably got to. Yeah, so I didn't even think of it that way, but now that you say that, I can see where people would do that. So you were at Coldwell Banker, and then how long were you at Coldwell Banker?
5 years.
5 years. So obviously learned a lot, grew in that position.
Absolutely.
When do you feel like you kind of really figured out, the business to where you could really grow a business? Because a lot of times in the beginning, we're just working in our business and we're kind of, like you said, you were trying to absorb anything. It sounds like you were doing a lot of coaching and things like that. When did you kind of feel like you had it kind of where you could kind of scale it and grow it a little bit?
Great question. So I could tell you exactly the moment that happened. When I was at Coldwell Banker, I got to a certain plateau for 2 years, and I couldn't get any higher. And I was talking to a managing broker at the time, and he suggested I talk to a high-producing agent in another market. So I gave him a call and invited him out to lunch. And my wife came with me. She's my assistant, does all the back-end work. She was there with her notepad. And we had a great conversation for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
About appetizers, dinner, dessert, whatever he wanted. And he was so generous with the information that the following year, my business tripled.
Yeah, wow. Isn't it amazing, like, when you sit down with someone and you get that time? I had a similar conversation last week with a top producer, and I don't think people realize sometimes when you take a few moments and you provide that, and I always use the word clarity, like you had all the tools, like you knew what to do. It's really aligning everything in a way
Having a good
where
system.
you can see it like clarity wise. Now, you've mentioned your wife already a couple times, so it sounds like she may be somewhat of the secret weapon that that you have that I think maybe many realtors do not have. Am I reading that correctly?
She's been my assistant from the get-go. So she had the experience with Liz Chalberg, which was the agent she was working with at Coldwell Banker. So she knew everything about the contracts, and she keeps eye on all the contingency dates, everything. And she sends me reminders on a weekly basis of who to call.
Wow.
If it's their anniversary, birthday, whatever. And it's
almost like an executive assistant.
Well, exactly. And so here's my to-do list. These are the people I'm supposed to call, and I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. I mean, that's a great teamwork. It's good that you have that, and obviously has been a big part of your success over the years.
Absolutely. It'd be tough to do what I do without her.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always say, we're always the face of what we do, and we're out there, and we do a lot. But it takes, whenever someone comes to me and they want to get in the mortgage business, one of the things I always ask them is, what is your home life like? Like, what do you have support at home? Because there's a lot of sacrifice that our spouses, our kids, may have to make. We're in this business because we're on the phone. We're taking, and you got to have that understanding. So I always, when loan officers come to me, they always, kind of look at me kind of weird. But I feel like it's really important that you have that support and you have that person. Now you got even better. You got the support, but you have an assistant that's your wife that knows the business, that knew the business ahead of time. So that's just a huge opportunity for you.
Right. And besides doing all of that assistant work, she spent, I think, 20 years at McDonald's corporate.
Wow, that's
in
awesome.
the marketing department.
Yeah.
So she's helped me with my marketing, my branding, everything. So
yeah. Well, it's done great. So you guys make a great team. So it's all starting to make sense a little bit. Not to take any credit away from you, but
I give her a lot of credit. Trust me.
So you're at Coldwell Banker, and then you find yourself going to App Properties from there. Okay. So was that when they opened up the office? Was there a different App Properties, or how'd that all come together?
I think they had one in Western Springs and Elmhurst at that time.
Okay.
And first time I seen App Properties sign with the at sign, I'm like, what is this? But the more I started following them and the marketing that they were doing, and I was talking to agents that went there with the support and the training. So I reached out.
Yeah.
And so I was actually the very first Downers Grove agent.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, and you're going to hold on to that. You got to you got to market that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So obviously, being at App Properties has, I've definitely seen a big tick up in like all the work that you're doing and everything. How much do you contribute that transition to App Properties to kind of really taking you that next step of your career?
I think it's a combined effort, just my involvement in the real estate and the support that I've received from them.
Yeah.
And they are, frontline on any kind of technological changes in marketing, and they've been great. Yeah. Anything I need, they're there for me.
And I would be, I'm curious your take on this, because obviously over the last several years, we've had this, all the news in real estate with different brokerages, private listings, all this stuff.
Sure.
And, the conversations I always have, and I get it, these companies, there's a lot of reasons why that really, aren't, incredibly important, but from the consumer side could be viewed as very confusing.
Sure.
So do you get questions from consumers on any of that? Do you look at it from a consumer side on the private network listing or anything like that? Like, how do you navigate, because there's so much change.
There is.
And you've been in the business long enough to recognize that we're in a really big moment and moments, whether it be mortgage side, but more so real estate side right now. Do you, educate the consumer at all on that? Or do you try to just keep it straight down the middle with the transaction?
I think the biggest question I get is with the buyer agency agreements right now.
Yeah.
And I think I do a great job of explaining that to them, and they walk away understanding and not having any objection to it.
Yeah.
I had very few questions about anything else that's going on. Very few people know about the changes in the regulations in real estate over the last couple of years.
Do you feel like those changes, though, and this is just me personally, I feel like it's almost put you more valuable to the consumer because you can navigate that, you can discuss it, you do understand the nuances where I think some people may struggle with that. Do you feel like your value has become even more valuable because of your experience?
Well, of course, because that is part of our job in this business is to educate our clients on everything about the real estate.
Yeah, yeah. So do you feel like, moving forward, is there a big opportunity for that to really separate yourself from a lot of your competitors because of the relationships that you built? You said yourself it's 97% referral, so people are already trusting you.
Sure.
So the trust is built. Now you factor in your experience, the value you can provide in a community where other people respect you and people are hiring you for that, that experience and that value.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, moving forward, that's going to be a huge competitive advantage for you?
I think that increases my value proposition, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the more information that we can provide our clients builds that trust. And if they walk away not being confused and feeling like they understand it, they're more apt to move forward comfortably in any situation.
Do you feel like that is, is if you meet with a lot of sellers and buyers, do you feel like kind of that's, what do you, as a buyer, like what's your biggest advice that you're sitting down and providing to a buyer today that may be different just a few years ago? Obviously, inventory is a big conversation, but, the average first-time home buyer age 10 years ago was 28. It's now 38, 40 years old. So you got to delay, you got a lot of, so I mean, a lot of buyers are looking to people like yourself for clarity.
Of course.
What do you feel like your advice do you have to those buyers?
Patience is number one, the key right now.
Yeah.
Do not rush in and make a decision that you're going to regret. And I am there by their side. I do have a remodeling experience for, I think, 12 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm always on the lookout for any issues with the home, or whether they could be just walk away for sure, or, this is what to expect. From the time we meet for the first time and the buyer consultation all the way through the homes, I'm informing them, every step of the way to keep them at ease.
So you mentioned buyer consultation. You meet with every buyer up front, face to face.
Sure.
I asked that because, I'm sure you're aware, but majority of people don't even do that anymore. And what do you try to, and I do a discovery call, and then I also do a buyer consultation. I could give my reasons, but like, what do you find is your opportunity in that, that I try to identify right then and there? Like, what's your goal of that first meeting with the buyer?
Well, no, the first question I ask is if they've reached out to a lender.
Okay.
Because that is so important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
And then, that's where we're going to begin. If they haven't, that's going to be the first step that they're going to do after we walk away from the conversation.
Yeah.
And then after that, it is a discussion on what is important to them in the house that they want.
And you mentioned, I love that you mentioned your contractor background, because I think this is another area where you're extremely valuable, because I feel like, and I love your thought on this, is like, it used to be you'd buy a 28 and you're not buying in the perfect location. You're not buying the perfect kitchen.
Sure.
Okay. Your needs are a little bit different, and you buy a home, and then that's going to be a home you live in for 4 to 7 years.
Correct.
And then you're going to sell that home, and then you're going to buy your perfect home. But the problem is, if you're buying at 38, typically you've already had kids. Typically,
Sure.
your needs at 38 are very different than 28.
True.
And now you got to have the perfect home. Okay. And you and I both know that a lot of buyers can't afford their perfect home as their first home.
Not today. No.
Exactly. So do you feel like that's kind of, we're kind of losing that like move up buyer from that 28 to 38 range?
I think we have lost some.
Yeah.
To be totally honest.
Yeah.
Because right now, especially if they already have their first home,
Yeah.
they're looking at their payment really
Yeah.
going up exponentially, and they can't afford it.
Yeah.
If they can't afford it, I say do it, because we're not going to. I don't expect to see a crash like we did years ago.
Yeah.
But I think we've lost some buyers.
Yeah. And on inventory, what do you think is, if, I always joke around, if you had control over policy or whatever, what do you think is the catalyst Is it truly just lower rates, or do you think it's bigger than that? Because obviously there's a lot of reasons why people are holding on to current properties. Either it's a really low rate, they have a ton of equity, if they sell, what are they going to buy? Is it just a combination of a lot of different things that are keeping a lot of people in place?
I think so. So definitely interest rates. I think if we could get down into the fives, we'll see quite a bit more movement. Not only, of course, sellers, and those sellers will probably be looking to buy as well.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because if there's no inventory, they're sitting there saying, well, if I sell, where am I going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking a little bit before we started. What were the numbers for Downers Grove that you were looking at? Because I think it's interesting.
Sure. This is for single-family homes. In the last 14 days, there were 31 homes gone on a contract, anywhere from $350 to $1.3 million, and only 7 new homes.
Wow. It's amazing to think about it. So I always look at everything. I love data, so I look at data. You probably see my content where I talk about data a lot.
Yes,
but
I do.
I always compare everything back to 2019, because the way I look at it is in 2019, pre-COVID, we weren't complaining there were too many homes on the market, that there was going to be a housing crash. There wasn't going to be anything. We were like, if you go back to 2019, like we were really excited about the housing market we were going into.
Sure.
Okay. We had 4,400 homes at the end of April in DuPage County that were on the market, not under contract. Today in DuPage County, we have 900.
Wow.
Okay. So
that's
so if
something.
you think about that for DuPage County and you break it out, like it's just, and then if you go into, so we're 63% below where we were in 2019. Now you go to Florida, they're 30% above where they were in 2019.
Right.
And we've always had very different markets, but that's like worlds apart. So when we see the average consumer, they're obviously confused by a lot of the data. So how much of your job in that buyer consultation is really to kind of lay that out to them so they understand? Because, most of the things that consumers read nowadays is about fear.
Yes.
So they're already in the back of their mind. At least these people have called you to go to a buyer consultation. What do you say to all the people that don't reach out to you because of the fear that they're reading? Like, because you're obviously trying to connect with your database. Is there something conversations that you try to have?
Number one, I tell the clients that I meet with is, be careful with what you're hearing or reading out in the media, because that's a general nationwide data that they're giving you.
Yeah.
Real estate is very localized,
Yeah.
right? So what you're seeing nationwide is not necessarily what you're seeing in Downers Grove.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then on that, how, obviously, do you deal with buyer fatigue? I always talk about buyer fatigue. So it's like they want to move, but it's tough. Like the market is tough because you're making a couple offers, or they see a home and then 2 days later it's under contract.
Right.
And they're like, well, I wanted my mom to see it. I wanted so like, do you deal with people where they just say, you know what, Slav, I just don't want to do this right now. Like I've got my heart broken 3 times and I don't is that a real thing for you to deal with?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Let's say 2019, buyers would find a home that they love. They could do a second showing, right?
Yeah.
Which I always recommended, because the first time you walk into a house, you love everything about it, right? The finishes. But when you go in the second time, you start noticing the things that are wrong. You know? And then you have to decide whether you can live with it. Today, it's very hard to do a second showing, because if you can't make a decision after 20 minutes of viewing the home, it could be gone.
Yeah.
And so there is buyer fatigue, because number one, they're being frustrated that there isn't a lot of homes to view. The ones they like are either gone or they're bidding against other buyers.
Yeah.
And that gets tiring and frustrating, and I definitely understand that. I felt bad for buyers for the last few years because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on the listing side, which I know you're a heavy lister, so completely different, conversations. But do you find yourself having to kind of dial them back a little bit because they're almost too confident sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah. So is that kind of your job, is to kind of keep them? Can you explain a little bit, like what does a listing presentation look like?
Number one, I put together all the data, the comps, and I don't ask my clients what they feel that their home should sell for until I tell them first.
Okay.
And then we have a discussion about it. Things are different than they were a few years ago. A few years ago, you could definitely push the price and get away with it. Number one, buyers are out there. They want to buy a home, but they're a little more selective. They're taking their time
Yeah.
to make sure it's the right home. And if your home is still on the market in August, you're going to be doing price reductions. But also, what I've been finding is appraisers are a lot tighter today than they were a few years ago. So it's very important to price your home right, to get the most amount of traffic through there, and to get the offer you want. You do not want to sit on the market too long.
I love that you said that, because I don't think I hear too many people focused on pricing, but I think it's because every once in a while we'll have appraisal issues, and like we'll call the listing agent, and they haven't prepared the client. They didn't even meet the appraiser at the house, which is a problem.
That's a big no-no. I'm there for every single
and that's why you're a good realtor. And because it's always the first question I ask is, did you meet the appraiser?
Yes.
Well, I know I gave him a code, and which red flag immediately. Sure. But a lot of times I'll hear, oh, well, the seller wanted me to list it there, and if we got an offer, we'll get an offer. But to me, that's not guidance, because now you got an appraisal issue. Client's upset, right. It's bad experience. So I love that you said, because I don't think the average consumer thinks that pricing right and a seller's market, that those two things don't seem to make sense. But to you and I, they make very big sense, because it can dictate how good of a transaction goes, and it appraises out and it closes. Because you got to sell the house twice.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. I explain that to my sellers. If the buyers are getting a mortgage, you have to sell it twice.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that, so when you're working with your sellers, okay, I always love asking this, because I just think it's important. Do you have kind of like when you sit down with a seller and you say, this is how I work, this is what my process is, this is what I do? Or do you kind of, okay, you don't want to do showings here, we can put it in the private. Do you have like a set thing that you do for everyone? And, because you're referral based, so it's a little bit easier, because people are hiring you for what you do. But do you have like a set way that you list a home, or do you kind of let the sellers kind of dictate a little bit, or, almost, I don't want to say a la carte, but, if they're want to do something a specific way, do you go along with that? Or are you more
specific ways, such as,
I don't know, if they just they don't want to have showings on the weekends, or they don't want this, or they oh, I don't want to do this work? Or are you very like, hey, this is what I suggest we do, we want to declutter here, we want to do
right? Oh, absolutely. So number one, when I go through there during our first meeting, I go in there with my camera, I let them know that these photos are just for me. Number one, to carefully compare their home to the other ones that have sold. But then I go through every single photo.
Wait, let's talk about that, because I've never heard anybody say that. I think
really,
I love that you said that. I'm thinking like, that's actually a really good idea. So you take the photos and then you just kind of go back and you kind of
I compare room to room, finishes, condition, and then I also go through each photo and make my initial suggestions of what to remove and so forth, painting, carpeting. But then I also bring in a stager. As a second follow-up once we decide to move forward, and she'll give them homework too, staging consultation.
I love this conversation, because I always hear I love your take on this, because I hear two ends of the spectrum on this.
Okay.
So it's a seller's market. Don't spend any money. Okay. You're gonna. You probably hear people say this.
Yeah.
You don't need to spend any money. It's going to sell, whatever. And then you have someone like yourself, who, is taking the photos, doing the research, making suggestions, getting a stager. I mean, essentially, you're investing in that seller by doing that work up front, and stuff that many others will not. Okay.
Sure.
Because they know that the house is going to sell. They're going to put a sign in front. It's going to sell. So when we talked about pricing right, I'm assuming this all comes down to maximizing getting the most amount of money and competing with other homes in the neighborhood, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then is that how you lay that out to a seller? This is what we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do that? Is this home sold for this, and you want to compete with this?
Right.
And then we want this to be the comp, not this one. Is that basically the conversation?
Absolutely. And if there's any homes currently on the market, I let them know this is your competition right now.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love the pictures. It's the first time I've ever heard that, and I've been doing this for a long time, but I love the idea.
So my memory is very short, especially if you're doing a couple listing presentations, to try to go back to and rely on my memory of what a house looks like. It's impossible. So this way I have it right in front of me, and there's no mistaking exactly.
So on that, because I think this is interesting. So is that more of a 2-meeting listing presentation then?
I do.
I think that's really good, because I think, some people will say like, oh, you want to get it signed right away. But I'm curious, do you feel like, because this is where I feel with buyers nowadays, and even a lot of my sellers, they're not 100% on board in the beginning. Like, the average buyer or someone that I know that needs to sell, I may be talking to them for 6 months before they even reach out, or to a listing agent or whatever, because in their mind, they're just slowly trying to come around to the idea.
Right.
So to listing, I feel like you're setting the stage, number one, getting, earning their trust, and then coming back with a game plan, I think can be very powerful in a market where, everybody wants things instantly. I think that, do you feel like that's done really well for you?
It has. And that's one question I get quite often on my first visit. What do you think our house will sell for?
Yeah.
And I let them know this is a very important decision. And I don't want to make a guess, because pricing your home right will determine how quickly it'll sell. I will have it in my report, and we'll go over it, when I come back.
I love that. I love it. So that's really good. So how, on that, because obviously I'm sure you're experiencing this, but people are using AI a lot more to find the value of their home. I will say this, my most recent, which I thought was interesting, my most recent appraisal issue, I actually ran it through AI to dispute the value. And I'm convinced, honestly, the only reason it got adjusted was because of the data that I couldn't get any help from the listing agent.
Oh,
so I ran it through AI. It gave me a full write-up that I submitted directly to the appraiser, and we got the value adjusted. So I'm curious, because now I know it's kind of crazy. So if you ever have one, that'd be the way to argue with the lender is. But I'm curious, as people have gotten access to AI, do you feel like the questions are different that people ask you? Have you noticed it yet? Where maybe someone, you're like, they put this into a chat to,
If they bring something up about values, about the homes, I ask them where they get the information from, because that's very important. And the thing about AI, it's a great tool. I use it. It's correct sometimes, and sometimes it's not. Bottom line, AI can't see inside a home, see what it's worth, see the condition, the updates, upgrades, and so forth. So it's a great tool, I think. However, it's not the end all.
Where do you feel like it's helping your business? You say you use AI. Do you feel like, is there something that has allowed you to, because I look at it as an opportunity to provide more, like as much AI is, I feel like people are craving human interaction. Okay. But my hope of AI, at least in our business, is that it takes a lot of the, busy work for us. And creates more time for us to have more human interaction with our customers. Do you feel like you leverage it in a way that allows you to do that, where you can, create more time with the consumer and have more time because you're not putting a bunch of things together that you would typically take you hours to do?
I will ask AI things like, first-time home buyer, this price bracket, and their income. What are their biggest fears? What are they looking for in their first-time home?
Oh, I love that. So like buyer personas, like in profiles. I love that. Okay.
This way, have something to talk about when I meet them. I tried using AI for listing descriptions. And I hated it. And I started seeing the same type of descriptions on other realtors. One of the things I did when I went to had all that coaching was copywriting. I love writing my own descriptions. I don't think that's going to change.
No, that's good. I like that though. That makes sense. I mean, and I say it all the time but do you want to be seen or do you want to be found? Like to me, that's really important in AI, especially for people like us. And seen is you can dance, like you and I could do a TikTok or something where we dance and we could get 1,000 views. But then that dies out after those 1,000 views. But you could do one of your videos, because I love watching your stuff. You do a lot of motivating stuff, and I love watching those. And that's something that can be there for years that people go back to. And that's something that people will find when they do searches. So do you put any thought together on that when you're doing your videos, or is that just stuff you're passionate about?
I do put thought into it. So several years ago, I take a lot of photos in Dallas Grove, and I was doing videos to showcase different businesses, spotlight on local. And that's great. It shows the community that you care. However, in the last few years, with all this uncertainty in real estate, I found it more valuable to provide educational information about what's going on in the real estate market. And what I'm finding on my YouTube channel is those videos, they might be a year, 2 years old, but they're still getting views.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it amazing how
that shows me what people really want.
And that's where getting found is, because, you're posting this content. People can be online searching, and ChatGPT or whatever, and it's going to reference those videos.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the powerful place for people like you and I to be found. Whereas for many years, how do we do that? We did that through Google and all these things, where a lot of that world's changing, which is interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. So you post a lot in the, so photography, was that something? Because I noticed you post a lot, with pictures. So is that just like a passion that you have, or
that's a passion?
Yeah.
I love photography. However, with my listings, I hire a real estate photographer.
Okay.
Right? Because, and I've been asked, why don't you take your own photos?
Yeah.
Number one, it takes time.
Yeah.
That would be taken away from my clients.
Yeah.
And number two, I'm not a real estate photographer. I want somebody who knows how to present a home. Yeah, photography's been a passion for quite a few years.
It's great. And do you find that, is there anything you take from, is it kind of like, because obviously being in real estate stressful, is photography kind of that thing that kind of gets you away a little bit to kind of get you out of doing real estate for a little bit?
Right, brings my focus into something else.
Yeah. Because I remember during COVID, you would post a lot of stuff around Downers Grove and like in front of the Tivoli, and like it was always like, I don't want to say uplifting, but it's kind of like you were always, people were, I think, were looking for better ways to look at what was going on, and I always think back when you would always post those things. Yeah,
no matter what's going on, there's always something to be grateful for. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. So the other thing that I always love kind of getting into is so we have a lot of difficult transactions. Okay.
Sure.
And part of, I think, you have a great team that you work with, and obviously that, but it also, I've noticed in your transactions that I've been on the buyer side, and, you kind of just, you have a very even keel, kind of demeanor about you. I don't know if you're aware of it, because how our business is. There's a lot of very high strung, very powerful egos in our business. So, any takeaway from that when I mentioned that? Because I see you smiling a little bit, because you know what I'm talking about. But
of course.
Yeah. Like how has that helped your business being like? Because I think the people that struggle, you get too high when things are great, and you get too low when things are. I always say, like, people that can kind of manage that. Is there anything that you pull on from your previous world, or anything that or is that how you've always been?
I have to say, when I first started out in real estate, I wasn't the way I am now.
Yeah.
I felt the stress more. I wasn't as even keeled with difficult agents at the other end, or attorneys.
Yeah.
But I have learned that the good people in real estate, you're going to be dealing with them more than once.
Yeah.
And you want to always set yourself up for future sales, future cooperation, and always treat people with respect.
Yeah.
And everything works out.
Yeah.
Even if a deal falls through, they'll get another one.
The classic story I always tell on this, and I say this to always younger agents, is like, they'll have a listing and they'll be like, really cocky about it or something. And like, listen, like, you never know, your next buyer could be with that agent.
Right.
And you're going to want that deal more than ever. And your ability to get that offer accepted is how you handle it when the shoot. And I've had that. I mean, you know how this business works. Like, the people that you don't like, you end up working with all the time, because that's just how this business works.
Right.
Like, it's much smaller than we give it credit for, even though there's thousands of us doing it. So I think the biggest value you can always provide to the clients that you serve is the ability to, have those relationships. And I think the people that have those relationships and can maintain those relationships usually have the most success.
Absolutely. And on the other side, if you're in a stress situation, your clients are going to feel it, and that's going to make them more stressed. The importance is to keep them calm and stress-free from contract to closing.
Yeah. So the other thing I always love kind of getting your take on is, obviously, over the last several years, the market has changed a lot. What have you noticed that's changed the most about buyers or sellers, okay, as far as, having all this access to information? Have you had to change your process a lot over the last several years, or do you feel like your process is kind of how often are you reevaluating your business and kind of changing the way you do things day to day?
I'm evaluating my business all the time. Much hasn't changed from my standpoint. I see sometimes sellers panicking if their home is on the market more than 15 days.
Is it crazy to think about?
I tell them it's not. That's nothing. It wasn't that long ago that 90 days was kind of the standard. So
I was just telling someone, so I used to work in a real estate office for 14 years in Remax office in Lisle. Okay, so I was there for 14 years. We were the in-house lender, and I was telling a story in 2010, 2011. Realtors would not want to take a listing. As crazy as it sounds, because they would have to have it for 14 months. Okay.
Oh, wow.
They would sign an agreement for 12. This was right after 2008, 2010.
Right.
And they were worried, I'm going to spend all this money on listing, and I don't even know if it's going to sell. Okay. Wow. And then if it does, I got to, if it expires at 12 months, I got to get an extended. And if I spend all that money, that was the mentality back then. It's crazy to even think about how our world is flipped upside down in such a short period of time. And I'll never forget, Brian Buffini had a webinar. It was in 2010. It was at movie theaters, and we hosted it. I was at Wells Fargo at the time.
Okay.
And he did this whole spiel about how there was going to be a housing shortage, okay? And every realtor walked out of there like, this guy is crazy. What is he talking about? And now here we are. And we have this housing shortage. Yes. But it was we went from, 14-month, so when you say 90 days, 90 days was normal.
Yeah, right.
And now it's 2 weeks. It's amazing how we've kind of all been immune to it.
Yeah, I would have taken a 14-month listing. What you want to be is the person who, when they're looking, is busy, is doing something.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Somebody who's hiding.
Yeah. They were I got to do open houses every weekend, and my sellers, I got to talk about price, decreasing the price.
Sure.
Yeah, so it was and in my world during that time, everyone was underwater. Couldn't refinance, couldn't purchase. It was just a really unique time.
Right. And I don't understand that fear that some agents have as far as talking to their clients about price adjustments. You have to set that up front.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. So, because I think I love that you brought that up, because I feel like what you just said is really important. So you sit down with a seller and just talk a little bit about that, when you're going through. Do you have a set number of showings, or is it a time frame?
So I will present them with the data. I'll pull up your type of home in this neighborhood. I usually get about so many showings before a contract.
Okay.
And I say, if we get to a point where we're having a lot of people come through and we don't have an offer, we need to take a look at it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why.
Yeah. Is it always price?
Everything comes down to price, because it could be condition.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But to overcome condition, you
price,
either
so
fix the condition or you lower the price. And I let them know up front that on a weekly basis, you're going to be getting a call from me. We're going to take a look at the real estate market, what has gone under contract, what has closed, what's new on the market that's your competition, and we're going to see where you're standing, and we'll discuss how to move forward every single week.
So on sellers, obviously you have we have 900 listings in DuPage County, whatever, that we're averaging. It's not a lot.
No.
All the obvious reasons, we talked a little bit about this, but I'm just curious. Well, I don't want to sell because I don't have anything to buy. I own the house free and clear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go anywhere else because I got nowhere else to go. Rates are higher, all the typical reasons.
Sure.
Do you have people that just, are there anything else that maybe not doing work to the house, kids are attached to the house and don't want mom and dad to sell their house? Do you kind of get a wide variety of, when your average listener, are you talking to these people for a while before they actually list, they're thinking about it? Or do they call you after they finally made the decision that it's time to sell?
It varies. Some of them might be a process several months away, or even maybe 4 or 5 months, and they want guidance on what to do next, and I provide that to them. And some of them are ready to go.
Because you mentioned a lot of people are moving out of state, and that, so is most of them obviously getting to retirement age, moving out of state, selling the house they lived in for a while and then deciding to move? Is that, kind of a lot of that move?
There's been a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even after COVID and that, or okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to your other question, some of the sellers are open to making some improvements, whether it be changing carpeting, doing some paint, and some are like, you know what? We're going to sell it the way it is, and the new buyers can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
And then I have to explain that. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. However, we're going to have to price it accordingly.
Exactly. And I think, at least from what I've seen, is that the buyers that are looking for that type of a home almost prefer that it's in the original condition to kind of, because there's nothing worse than someone doing something that they don't want and then having to redo it anyways.
Yeah, right.
Because what's interesting, and I don't know if you've started to see this at all, but the 35 to 38-year-old, very slow to kind of re-enter the market and be that first-time home buyer. I will say this. What surprised me the most is the 25 to 30-year-old. We're starting to see almost a lot more 25 and to 30-year-olds at a bigger pace, I would say, than the millennials. And I'm just wondering if you've seen any of that or if kind of experienced that at all.
I have seen an increase of buyers in their 20s, which I think is fantastic. Obviously, they're doing something right. They have a great job. They're putting their money aside and, getting that first home.
So one of the things I'm curious your take on, and one of the things I always say on that, I'm kind of setting you up for this question, but like one of the things I always say is like the buyer who was in their, the millennial buyer may or may not a large percentage of them saw their parents go through, possibly a short sale, a foreclosure, because that was all during the time frame of 2010. And, and their opinions of housing may be very different than someone who is younger, who didn't see their parents go through that.
Experience that.
And that,
right.
So like, I'm just curious if we'll look back years from now, when we look at this, like they call it the lost decade,
right.
28 to 38, if that really has a lot to do with, it's more psychological. We keep saying it's student loans and all these things, but it might just be their opinion on housing is just not good.
That's a great point. I didn't think about that. Think about the people who grew up through the Depression and how they lived their life very frugally after that. So that's
I'd just be interested if that, because I see a lot of these younger people, and I even see, we have a 24-year-old loan officer in our branch, and he owns 4 rental properties. And it's like, he's helping people his age that are buying these multi-units and doing all this real estate work. And if you think about it, 28 to 38, that's 10 years of appreciation. I'm just about to post something on this. That's why it's fresh in my mind. But like, it's like, the average sales price is like $240,000 in equity. Like that's money you never get back if you buy at 38. It's like going to your financial advisor and saying, hey, I'm going to start saving at 40 and I want to retire at 65. He's going to be like, Eric, that's not going to work. Like the math doesn't work. Like you need more time in the market. So I think if there's anything I hope we can really get to is hopefully get some of, that 20 to 30-year-olds to, maybe invest more in real estate and buy more starter homes and kind of dip their toe in the water.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And so, last thing I always like to kind of go through is, where do you see the market, 2-3 years from now? Do you have any thoughts on it? I'm sure you think about it, and I'm not gonna put you on the spot too much, but I love your take on it because I know you're a data person. So where do you see the market in the next couple of years?
I don't think much is going to change this year. Unfortunately, they were originally predicting an increase in inventory, and May is the month where we start seeing a huge influx of homes coming on the market, and we're not seeing it. I think we're going to have more inventory in the next 2-3 years. Hopefully, interest rates will get down to the mid-5s, and that'll open a lot of things up. I don't see home prices in this area coming down much, if at all. There might be a slight adjustment. However, I tell buyers, if you can afford to buy now, don't wait, because you're going to be paying more and your monthly payment's going to be more, even if the interest rate's a little bit lower. But I see that happen. I think there's going to be more inventory, and that'll open up for more buyers as well.
Do you get a lot of questions about, Slav, should we wait to buy or should we wait to sell? it's always a difficult question because neither of us have a crystal ball. And well, we don't want to cheerlead the market and be like, everything's great, because people aren't feeling that with everything going on with Iran and all this stuff. I feel like, there's a lot of angst a little bit. Obviously, stock market at all times high, so that people are feeling good about that. Not everyone participates in that as much as others. But when someone asks you, should they wait or should they buy now? How do you approach that? Because obviously it's a little sensitive because we obviously have a vested interest if they move forward. And I'm just curious how you handle that.
Well, I tell my buyers, number one, start with the lender. Take a look at what you have to put as a down payment, what's your income and not what you qualify for, but what you can comfortably pay on a monthly basis towards your home. If you can afford it, I highly recommend it. If it's going to stress you out, then maybe you should wait. Yeah. I think you have to be upfront with your clients. Even when we were through that crazy period a few years ago where every single home was, had 20 offers on it, I told my clients to be careful. If you know that your job is secure, if you know you're going to stay in this house for 5-7 years, okay, but if you think something's going to change, be careful about offering, 30, 40,000 over list.
What's crazy is you mentioned I just did a refinance for someone in January that purchased during the heat of COVID. They were doing some work on the house, so they were actually getting some cash out, but they paid like $60,000 over list. And I remember how much they were very anxious about it, very concerned about it. And when we did the appraisal, it was like, I think the property came in like $280,000 more than what they paid. Okay. And, they were like, she basically said to me, she's like, if you would have told me then, Eric, I'm going to give you 60,000, you're going to give me 280, I would have done it in a heartbeat. She's like, but at that moment, she's like, I basically felt like I was putting 60 grand into a fire pit and burning it just to get a house. But she's like, thankfully, it worked out. And I think it's hard for people in that moment.
Of course it is. That's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I always like to kind of go through is, did you always grow up in the area? Like where's like home for you?
Well, I was born in Poland.
Okay. So that's okay. That's great.
I was born in Poland.
Okay.
Came from a very poor farming community.
Okay.
No running water, no electricity.
Wow.
We were like the Amish.
How old were you when you moved here?
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I went back when I was 12, they still didn't have any running water or electricity, and they were still using horse and carriage to get around.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. Did you get back to Poland a lot?
I have not been there in quite a long time.
Wow.
My kids are begging me to take them there.
Yeah. So what was it like? Obviously. So how old are your kids?
41, and my daughter's going to be 38.
You have grandkids now?
We have 2 grandkids.
So
and 2 step grandkids.
So is that just like life change completely when?
Of course.
I mean, does it change your perspective? Obviously, having kids and housing and seeing how housing affects them and what you do every day. Did it make you appreciate kind of what you do even more?
Of course.
Yeah.
I enjoy the heck out of our grandkids. One day a week, we go out there to see them.
Yeah.
And they live close.
I was going to say, is everyone close
nearby? Schaumburg and Plainfield.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's just life-changing, I'm sure.
It is. It puts a different perspective on life.
Absolutely.
You really see, like when your grandkids are born to where they are now, 8 and 5, how quickly that goes.
Yeah.
How precious time is.
Yeah, and then I'm sure you get it's also nice that you can, drop them off when, it's quick. After they get out of you can spoil them, give them a bunch of sugar.
Load them up on sugar.
And then just send them back. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what my parents love to do with my son. So that's what grandparents are for.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the only other thing I was really kind of curious about is, I always ask everyone, if money was not an object, is there anything that you always have passion for that maybe I would not realize that you would love to do if money wasn't an object? Is there a secret Slav passion that you have?
My wife and I love cruising.
Okay.
So
even after the new I know.
It's we love it a lot.
So you either love cruising, or you don't love cruising. There's really nothing.
Have no interest in it. We love it. It's like the perfect vacation. You don't have to worry about planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could get off at the ports. You cannot get off the ports.
Where's your favorite cruise too? Do you have one that you really
we love
like?
the Caribbean.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if
Can't go wrong with the Caribbean.
No, the weather's perfect. The water's blue.
Yeah.
Probably go on the longest cruise you could possibly go on and go around the world.
So outside of photography, anything? Do you have any passions or anything that
Outdoors,
you do? Outdoors,
yeah. I love
that's
nature.
right. Because you have your place up in Wisconsin, right?
We have 5 acres in Wisconsin near where my wife grew up.
Okay.
1 acre pond. So it's really secluded, and I love being out there. I still do work when I'm up there, but it's a different atmosphere. My energy level just kind of drops and relaxes.
So I love that because I don't have that, but I have a place in Florida that I love. But I the way I always explain it to people is I can't really explain it, but like after like a day or two being there, like I just feel like all the stress, because in the world we live around here, we don't realize it, but we're always on the go.
Oh, of course.
We're up early, and you're an early riser, right? What time do you get?
4 a.m. usually.
Okay, so let's talk about that because I'm an early riser. So when did you start getting up early?
Well, when I drove some ice for UPS, I worked all kinds of hours. And towards the end, I would start at 2 a.m.
What does your morning routine look like?
I wake up at 4 a.m., put the coffee on. I do a little reading. At that time, I have my infrared sauna warming up.
Yeah.
And then I first go in front of my red light therapy tower for 15 minutes. Then I go into my sauna for 40. Then I do some stretching, some work with dumbbells.
Yeah.
And then I get my day going. And then my wife and I try to get out to Good Sam's health club.
Yeah.
Maybe 3-4 times a week.
How much do you contribute that morning routine to kind of your success in business? Because I was just at the number one loan officer in America works for Rate. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he got asked this question, how do you, what's the secret to success or something like, whatever. It was a dumb question, very vague. And he said, all the blueprints are there and self-help for all, like, it's all there.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to like become the person, and take care of your body first.
Of course.
Before you can do the blueprint, and who you are,
right,
is more important than who you become. Mm-hmm. And you got to kind of, so I'm just curious if you kind of take that same.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot imagine just getting out of bed and rolling right into work.
Yeah.
My day would be chaos. Your morning routine is the foundation of your day.
Yeah.
So even when I'm in the infrared sauna, I'm listening to a guided meditation just to get myself into the right, mindset and energy level.
Yeah.
And then I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I do a lot of meditation. I use the word a lot, but I feel like I get a lot more clarity. I think I'm a better because when you come in, I feel like that mindset that you need to be successful is there. And when I can't do it in the morning for whatever reason, if I have something or I don't get up or something, which is very rarely, like I'm off the rest. Like I know, it's like my mind is just not in the right spot.
Sure.
Because I feel like, in order to be successful in our business and to be able to be on at, 3 o'clock or whatever it is, like you have to be taking care of your body. You got to eat right. You got to drink a lot of fluids.
Right. I take supplements first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
My first meal is a bowl of raw sauerkraut.
I love it.
And then a bowl of empty out avocado and dump sardines and hot sauce.
Wow. See, now that's a little bit more dedication than I am, but
But when you wake up that early, that time belongs to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because once the day starts, your time is shared with your clients. And
don't you feel like, and it sounds weird to say, but I say it all the time. I feel like it slows down my day because when I don't have that time in the morning, I feel like I'm chasing the day.
Right.
Because to your point, you're along for the ride at that point. Because once your phone starts ringing, you don't have that you time. And when you have that you time and you can really get clarity, like some of the best ideas that I have in my business come during the time when or I'm sure when you're up in Wisconsin and everything quiets down,
right,
and you're sitting in front of your lake, you probably come up with some really good ideas.
Some really good thoughts there.
Yeah. Do you feel like it clears your mind a lot too to be able to be a better husband and father, all that?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I bookend my day, and end of the day I read something.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
Something motivational or educational. I
what
don't read any fictional. I just never got into it.
I know, like, but do you listen to a lot of podcasts or?
I do.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I buy a lot of audiobooks.
Anything your favorite that you go back to a lot?
Some of the classics.
Yeah.
You know, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich, all that
And
stuff. Yeah.
And they have another remarkable book, but it's huge. It used to be a college course back in the 30s.
Wow.
The Law of Success.
Oh, yeah.
That's very interesting. And then, the basics like the 7 habits of
successful people. I'm the same way.
Those.
I love all that stuff.
And all the new stuff really comes from that.
I was going to say that because like when you're listening to some of the newer stuff, you're like, oh, this came from this or whatever.
Sure.
But and I don't know if you agree with this, but like I always like when it's never anything earth-shattering when you're reading these things. It's all stuff we know.
Right.
But it's good when you're in the right mindset to hear that stuff multiple times and getting your mind right, because it's little decisions that you have throughout the day that you can lean on. And if you don't have that morning time, it's well, Slav, you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take up.
Busy. You're probably busier.
No. I really appreciate. It means a lot that you took the time to sit down with me, not knowing what we were going to talk about because we didn't even prepare.
Sure.
So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really enjoyed the conversation. I knew you were an interesting guy. But coming from another country, building the business that you have, having the success you've had, hearing all this and seeing how you are and still working out and doing all this after back surgeries and everything else, it's remarkable. So you got a great story.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime. We'll do it again anytime. You're close.
Good. Yes,
you
I am.
can find me anytime. So I appreciate it.
You got
Thank
it.
you very much.
Right,
Thank you, Slav. I appreciate it.